What is going on, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the third EP by metal band Metallica. Basically, this project is called Beyond Magnetic, and it came out in the late fall of 2011. The thing about this particular project is this is kind of like the pseudo sequel to Death Magnetic from late 2008, as far as that pitch can happen with it. Now, basically, Metallica took a pretty extenuated break between Death Magnetic from late 2008 to about Hardwired to Self-Destruct in late 2016 as far as their particular pitch kind of went along with it. But it's just kind of the concept that between that particular album, they did have some pseudo-type projects. This was one of them in late 2011. It's leftovers from the album sessions of Death Magnetic from 2007 to mid 2008, I'd have to say, but it's also the concept they had project called Lulu, which came out with the cat. They kind of also had a pet project called Lulu that came out in late 2011 as well, just a few weeks before this particular one. So there was some stuff that kind of happened in between, but obviously Metallica had been around since like the early 80s. So that's kind of the pitch behind it as far as that particular kind of went. But there's 4 songs on here. These are all pretty good, especially in the band work. I would say this is fantastic. This definitely takes it back to days like Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets and Justice for All and some of those type ones. I would definitely have to say this is kind of the concept to get some of this quality here as far as that pitch goes. In terms of the band work, this project would probably be like a 10 out of 10 just overall. Just the fact that, like normal Metallica complaints that I've had in the past, some of these songs are just kind of lengthy and more lengthy than probably what would need to be listened to. Now, I at least recommend 3 out of 4 songs on here. Not really sure what the singles would be. I think it's just kind of like a rough draft kind of EP. They had said that these songs were just rough drafts or just the original mixes that didn't get remastered and pitches like that as far as it particularly kind of went. Maybe not remastered, but just overall mastered in general as far as that kind of went along with it. Just leftover cuts that were just kind of in the chopping block as far as the particular kind of went along with it. But basically, these songs were kind of seen as leftovers as far as that pitch kind of happens. Now, Death Magnetic, I'm eventually going to get to that particular album as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. I am interested in it. I was looking it up the other day or just yesterday. I was looking up information about that particular project. It had like 5, 6, maybe even 7 singles and pitches like that. Pretty good concept, but it's a pretty lengthy album, just like the albums from like their 80s days as far as the pitch kind of goes along with this. So it's just going to be an interesting concept. I would have to say with the singles, I'm probably just going to listen to like the radio edits of those. But because this particular EP doesn't have any radio edits like the songs on here, because there's not really any singles released, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to go towards it with the appeal of what it is. So basically all 4 of this basically out of the 4 songs on here, the only song I don't recommend in some fashion is just Rebel of Babylon. But to talk about that one is just a rather lengthy type song. I don't mind some of these 6.5 and 7 minute type songs that I had to say in particular because it has like the concept of being with it. But I just look after the concept. Some of these do get pretty lengthy. It's the concept. Now the unfortunate thing about Rebel of Babylon is just the fact that this is an extremely shredding song. This is some real gnarl type work, and just the riffage on this particular song. This is an easy kind of Kickstarter. This one might actually be crazier than Just a Bullet Away, which is a pretty sheer type one. That one's a little bit more of like a work shift type craze, would be the Just a Bullet Away, just kind of one that's turn up but not quite full blown. Rebel of Babylon's definitely one of those mosh pit type songs that you would get from like Metallica's 80s days. It's unfortunate that it's 8.5, or it's just unfortunate that it's over 8 minutes, but it is a pretty good song in terms of like the quality behind what the band work kind of was with it. Definitely feels like it probably should have been on the album pitches like that. Doesn't feel like it was just a half baked or just unfinished type song. I'd have to say it's just good concept for that, but it's just more length than what I'd probably full blown have the patience to listen to consistently or continuously. I'd have to say. That's just what Metallica is kind of known for. I do feel like most of the time I'll fuck with the singles from the 80s, like Master of Puppets and some of those type ones, and the ones off of And Justice for All and some of those type pitches and Ride the Lightning. I'd have to say, good enough concept. We'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and talk about the 3 songs I recommend on here. So basically, Hate Train is a real nice one. It's like a rough draft kind of summer blazer, I would have to say in particular. It's like a would-be single if there would have been a single off this particular project, I'd have to say. This reminds me of like the Master of Puppets days. I would definitely feel like this feels like the Master of Puppets title track single from those particular days in 1986 or so. This is just some good makeshift heat. So this is definitely one that you would listen to just in the heat of summer pitches like that good June, July type day to kind of have just for like some makeshift type heat, just stuck in traffic pitches like that, just kind of kick back, just sunglasses on pitches like that, just in a pretty good mood. Possibly hotboxing in the whip with your buddies, some pitches like that. Just would have to say it's pretty good work shift commerce and pitches like that. Just some good blue collar type stuff to kind of have in particular. Just some real good summer heat just for that sort of aspect. This takes it really back to like the 80s days of Metallica. It's a pretty good concept. This definitely feels like what probably would have been the lead single on a typical kind of Metallica album had they dropped more often, like the late 2000s, early 2010s. So that's a nice one. Hell and Back is the next one. This is another pretty nice one. This is like a hazy, kind of gaunt and creeping kind of autumn makeshift of a song I'd have to say in particular. It's like a metal brooding. This is definitely like a hazy, gaunt, and creeping kind of autumn makeshift metal. Like I was saying, just some dope concepts. Kind of get that. This is a real shrill type one. This is probably I really appreciate the ghastliness of this particular one. This really feels like alternative metal almost. It's kind of the concept. I don't know the '80s Metallica albums as full blown. I'd have to say I've listened to some of them in patches, but not as full blown as to listen to like the whole thing. So it makes me question if they have some of these haunting kind of like just the kind of more bluesy and roundabout type singles that are not necessarily vicious, but just kind of like afterthought in between type songs for just like car traverse and pitches like that. It's a pretty good concept, but it's definitely a real haunting type one. It's just a little bit more of like a vicious type aspect that has some of that appeal, almost in like Korn and Marilyn Manson type territory pitches like that. I'd have to say, but this is like a brooding kind of stress release for like some errand runs. I'd have to say in particular. So it's definitely this whole project is just basically some Traverse type fare minus like Rebel of Babylon, which is like a mosh pit type song. Despite the lengthiness of that one, but I would have to say all of these like Hate Train, Hell and Back, and Just a Bullet Away are all some Traverse type ones kind of have in particular this vehicle bound type stuff for disc that miss kind of the work shift and pitches like that just within the appeal, just like standard kind of whether it's summer, autumns, and pitches like that. It's this relative good aspects to kind of have for just like some good this energetic type car fare as far as that particular kind of goes. Just look after it. I do like some of these leftovers. I definitely feel like they probably should have beefed up Death Magnetic and just mastered these particular songs and thrown them on there. But I'm glad that they did because this is a pretty good quality project and it's worth purchasing just on its own. And plus, the thing about it is Death Magnetic was a pretty lengthy album just because all the songs were pretty much over 5-6 minutes, I'd have to say. So it's kind of the thing. But just a Bullet Away is the next song. It's another one. This is actually the second song on here. I was talking about Hell and Back. I was talking about Hell and Back first just because I enjoyed that one, but it's a pretty good highlight. Both of those are pretty nice. These are the shortest songs on here, Hate Train and Hell and Back. These are the ones that have the most radio single type snap, I'd have to say, and these are pretty affable type ones. But Just a Bullet Away is over 7 minutes. Still pretty nice one. This is the most popular song on the album according to Spotify, I'd have to say, and it's a pretty gnarly type one. This is probably the album's second gnarliest song after Rebel of Babylon, I'd have to say. This is like the project's most vicious evening turn up in terms like just regular appeal. That's something I recommend, I'd have to say. This one gets things kicked off for like a hectic kind of flip mode type saga as far as that pitch can go. So this is another car traverse type one. Like I was saying, it's a good concept just to be able to have a little bit more gnarled than Hate Train. I'd have to say in particular. This is kind of the concept, just a little bit one, just a little bit more energetic, the one to kind of get you revved up and pitches like that. Just for getting ready to have some crunk times and pitches like that. I would definitely have to suppose just really hectic type flip mode of just ditching like the work shift type mode and getting towards like getting ready to get raved for the night and pitches like that. It's just kind of the concept. Not really as many full blown vicious songs on here. I just question if Death Magnetic kind of did that in particular to have some of those type moments, but it's just kind of the concept of having a little relative composure as far as a particular kind of goes. For like the work shift, just some good energetic type ones. You know, maybe getting home, smoking a swisher in the car, some pitches like that, and then getting ready to get crunk as far as that particular kind of goes. Just the traverse of just enjoying the ride around and traverse and pitches like that. Just localized residential type stuff, just standard commute, I'd have to say in particular, just a little bit energetic and just a metal type fare of it. So it just makes like the standard blue collar type fare more fun than it probably normally would be, I'd have to say, which is a pretty good concept. So that's the pitch behind this particular project. So me recommending those 3 songs out of 4 on here, I'd have to say in particular, I'm going to go ahead and give this EP like an 8.25 out of 10. The only reason why it doesn't get a higher score is just because Rebel of Babylon was just too lengthy a song. I do feel like in terms of the band work, it pretty much is pretty classic, I'd have to say. If Rebel of Babylon had probably been like 45 or so seconds shorter, this EP would probably get a 10 out of 10, no doubt, just because it's just, this project is definitely Metallica and pretty blistering type appeal. This overall has that aspect. They were definitely on point with their band work and just overall hooks and things like that. The vocals, the melodies on here, James Hetfield does a pretty good job with this. Sounds on Fire just sounds like he's ripped out of 1983 or 1991 as far as those pitch can have. It's just an interesting type concept. Pretty inspired project overall. I'd have to say it's an excellent type pitch to kind of get here. Takes it back to their 80s thrash days as far as that particular kind of goes and just has the edge of just sounding contemporary to like the late 2000s, early 2010s, I'd have to say. So it's a dope enough concept. So 8.25 score. In terms of the social score, I'm going to go ahead and give the social score like a 9 out of 10. I just feel like in terms of the concept, just because all 4 of these songs are pretty shredding as far as that pitch can goes. Rebel Babylon is kind of a mosh pit type song. Just a bullet away is pretty revved up type energetic type one to get out of the work shift, and then Hell and Back and Hate Train are like some good car drivers type ones just to have with your buds or just in general by yourself as you're just going through the work shift haze. It's a pretty exciting project overall. Just I wonder if Death Magnetic is as awesome as this particular product. I'd have to say it's just a dope enough concept kind of get that. So yeah, I would give it a 9. The only reason why I wouldn't get a higher score is just because there wasn't a single off this particular product, and I just question what songs would be released to radio. Probably should be. I think there probably should be some radio airplay for this particular project. Definitely could have been. Maybe they could go back and do these songs and get them more originally mastered. It's just kind of, it's not like this is a bad rendition of it. It's just kind of constant. Just needed some promotion, I'd have to say. But still, nine social. In terms of the future, like Metallica just dropped an album in 2023. Nowadays, they kind of take lengthier gaps. The album before this particular one that came out in 2023 came out in 2016. So it's not very frequent nowadays. I mean, they had been around since 1983. So it's just kind of the concept. But this is pretty damn near a classic project here. I'd have to say definitely highly inspired from Metallica, and I do recommend it quite surely, I'd have to say.